Welcome to Ocean School. This podcast is to introduce the Ocean School Collective and our participation in the 2025 Gedimin Artist Residency, which is the Environmental Artist Residency hosted by the Ocean Alliance in Gloucester, Massachusetts, right on Rocky Neck, and it's sponsored by the Rocky Neck Art Colony. I'm here today to introduce the project, and Amanda Hurley, who's the education manager here at BevCam in Beverly, Massachusetts, will ask me some questions, and that will help me to introduce our project. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for joining us at BevCam for your new podcast. We're excited to see it unfold. So Kate, you are one of the Ocean School Collective OSC who will be participating in the Gedimin Environmental Artist Residency at the Ocean Alliance for the month of September 2025, sponsored by Rocky Neck Art Colony.
Right. That's right. You got it.
Okay. What is the GAR Environmental Artist Residency at the Ocean Alliance all about?
Well, the Gedimin Artist Residency is sponsored by the Rocky Neck Art Colony. The Rocky Neck Art Colony is one of the oldest continuously working art colonies in the country, dating back to the 1800s. Famous names associated with the colony are Fitzhenry Lane, Winslow Homer, Childe Hassam, and the American Impressionism era, and then Edward Hopper, Milton Avery, Stuart Davis, Adolf Gottlieb of the modernist period. Rocky Neck today remains a vibrant art community that brings people from far and near. The Rocky Neck Art Colony has run the Gedimin Artist Residencies for many years, and the Environmental Installation Artist Residency at Ocean Alliance in particular was established with a particular focus on environmental issues and encourages the artists to create work that addresses challenges of our planet at large. Their description reads, "The environmental installation artist offered by GAR in partnership with Ocean Alliance, the artist, selected via jury, is encouraged to work outdoors over the course of the month-long residency and to develop their ideas and concepts pertaining to the region, concurrently working on a site-specific installation at the Ocean Alliance Center on Rocky Neck. The residency has made art both visible and accessible to the public. Artists are encouraged to engage the public and draw attention to the questions and challenges posed by environmental policies, politics, and/or social change. Each artist is provided with a stipend and is expected to offer an opening and closing talk." So typically this is a process residency. So usually there's one artist invited, and they're given 1 month and a place to live right there in Rocky Neck. And Ocean Alliance opens their door and their library and their archive to let the artist just kind of see what's in there and see what comes out of the residency. And the artist usually offers open studios throughout the month so that the public can come in and see what's going on.
Awesome. So can you explain what the Ocean School Collective OSC is?
Yes. Ocean School Collective, we call ourselves OSC, is an art collective made up of artists, philosophers, poets, and musicians from Boston's North Shore and Cape Ann who have been doing artistic research in the archives of the Ocean Alliance on Rocky Neck since 2022. We design installations, performances, and creative public education events in order to promote an environmental ethic that we call ocean thinking. We aim to expand the cultural sphere to include the world of whales by combining creative futurism and fabulation with the advances in whale science and ocean conservation efforts of the Ocean Alliance. Our work opens creative space for artists, scientists, technology, and the whales to meet together in what we say as our chorus, in the safety of the song. Members who are participating in the Gedimin Artist Environmental Residency for the month of September are me, Kate Farrington, Maria Patricia Tinajero, Reese Siswick, Ivana Usterez, and Julie Corcoran. Other members of the collective are Haley Reardon and Robin Kolodzen. Past work we have done includes Where the Land Meets the Sea from 2022 2, a public art performance by Ocean School Collective at the Ocean Alliance for Culture Splash, sponsored by Gloucester Main Streets and Rocky Neck Arts. That was August 18th, 2023. It was 2023. The working spaces of Ocean Alliance were transformed into an art and science laboratory that introduced the work of the OCS expedition team to the Rocky Neck community through a large-scale installation. Augmented reality art and live performance featuring transmission with whales by Reese Siswick and whale song accompaniment by singer-songwriter Haley Reardon were highlights of the performance, and it was awesome. It really was so
These
fun.
are really cool. I have to ask, is there somewhere online or otherwise where people can see video of this or photos or read about it? Because there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Well, we are developing a kind of a landing place website so that people can find out about us and see our past work and participate in Ocean School. Yes.
Okay. When you have that, we'll put it up on the screen.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda.
So moving back to this year's Gettleman Artist Residency at the Ocean Alliance, can you give a brief overview of what your plans are for the month-long residency?
Yes, Ocean School Collective will present an open art school for artistic research inside the archives of Ocean Alliance. The residency is devoted to ocean thinking, in collaboration with the songs of the humpback whales and the scientific work of Ocean Alliance. The residency will feature many school activities such as an opening talk and an open studio workshops, and culminate in a public performance that is our Expedition 1. It's an expedition, but it will have a special name. Yes.
Can you, I think this
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can go on a little bit more if you want.
Sure.
Because we have a little bit more in depth because we are, we use this thing, it's a fancy word in art called speculative fabulation. So if you go to art school and you read the art magazines, you might have heard that term, but for a lot of people, the idea is it's a creative, almost like science fiction storytelling. It's using the imagination to do things that actually scientists can't do. Scientists have to measure the world, and they use data and kind of objective work and technology and everything pushing to understand our world. What artists can do with this, what we call, speculative fabulation, is use our imagination and creativity to bring the arts into the picture of problem solving. And it's a way to think together, to imagine a different reality and to step into that. So we, you can think of it as creative storytelling. So our collective have decided for the residency to position ourselves as expeditioners. The Ocean Alliance has been around for over 50 years, and they have done whale science expeditions in every corner of the globe. They have been to the Arctic. I don't know if they've been to the Antarctic, but in the Caribbean or Hawaii. They have even been to Papua New Guinea, I learned from Ian Kerr, the director of the program. And so, anywhere in the world, they did an amazing, we have a video from them from Gabon, which is off the coast of the African continent, with all these huge, it's a place where they're digging for oil. So oil refineries, they go on the coast and then they go out, and they have a beautiful video of a mother and a baby whale. They have been in the Persian Gulf to Oman. They've been everywhere. They did a lot of work early on with the founder, Roger Payne, and his family in Argentina, and the whales are down there in the wind. So they've been everywhere. So we decided, well, we'll do a different kind of a whale expedition using the imagination. So that's kind of our form, and we are like, think about it. The last 2 years, some of the most powerful, wealthy men in the world have mounted commercial space expeditions. Very high profile. I think of Sir Richard Branson, and I think he was the first one to get up.
Oh, yeah.
And he with all the expedition uniforms, you have to choose what are the people on the expedition? What are their roles? Being, having the privilege to go on such an expedition. I think Katy Perry was on the latest one.
Yeah.
What do you want to say? What do you want to bring if you make that leap into the unknown, into in our case, the unknown of the ocean, the world of the ocean. It's a place right here on Earth. It's so big, and we're just beginning to understand the mysteries that are
That's kind of like
contained
another
there.
universe
It totally
in and of
is.
itself, too. All these creatures that haven't been discovered yet. Yeah.
Yes, and the idea is, what would we do if we could communicate with them?
That'd
What
be
would they
really
say
cool.
to us? What is our mutual obligation to each other? And if that open line of communication was open, how would that change things for
Yeah.
us in terms of how we kind of operate? So that's kind of
That's
the idea.
really cool. I do believe animals communicate. Once you get to know an animal, you get to understand how they communicate and speak to you. If you have a pet, you figure it out after a while. Oh, I know what that look means, or I know what,
It's true.
It's so fun. Yeah. So I think it's a lot. It's very unique and multifaceted, and you have such a reach. And I'm curious, just, how did you get there, and what is your role, and the why of it all, because obviously you're very passionate about this.
Yes. Well, it's a good segue into just a brief introduction of who I am, and I hope that in podcasts we'll be able to get to meet everyone in the collective. But I am the Chief Curriculum Officer of Ocean School, and the project is an open art school. It's a term I coined in my teaching years. I ran a class that I called Open Art School's Introduction to Socially Engaged Art. And it uses the principles of place as medium that comes out of my philosophical work. Again, that's something I've coined through my work, and I will describe that shortly. And, so as that, it's, I'll give you a brief overview. That was your question. But
That's amazing. Yeah. No, I was just wondering that, is that how it started? That obviously all art has a message and can create change, but having a taste of that, this is very targeted, specific change, and this is something that, we can actually discover, just make discoveries through, and it's not just art in a vacuum. Was that experience what sort of opened that up for you, and something click?
Well, if I go back to the background, it's interesting because I grew up in Bangor, Maine. Big family. There were 5 girls in our family, 2 sets of twins. I know because you have twins.
Yes,
too.
we talked
You
about
have
that.
twins.
It's just wild. Your mother is amazing.
2 sets of twins under 2, and then another one later. So 5 girls. Anyway, it was growing up in Bangor, Maine. I went to college and I took a class in Eastern philosophies. I know this is backing up a little bit, but then that took me to China in 1987. And then I went to Taiwan, I studied the language. But there's something about that encounter with something so different that was so impactful for me. First of all, Eastern philosophies is a very different framework for thinking than our Western framework. And I became a philosopher. I studied this for many, many years afterwards. But learning the language and the calligraphy, it was impactful. And I ended up going I get a master's degree at Harvard Extension while I was working at Harvard, and I was raising my young son, so I know these are busy years as we are parents and
Yes.
trying to keep going and doing things. And I also got an MFA in arts because along with this kind of philosophical side, I just was always making art. So these 2 things came together, and then I went all the way. I got a PhD in philosophy, art theory, and aesthetics.
Wow.
So then I became an academic, and I started teaching college students. I spent, including 8 years here at Montserrat College of Art, which is right here in Beverly, where I became an associate professor of liberal arts, and most recently at Emerson College as affiliated faculty, where I was lucky to be able to teach environmental ethics. in the philosophy department. My artistic practice has taken so many shapes over the years. I started in painting with a special love for portraiture. I moved into installation work and eventually expanded my practice to do art projects out in the world as socially engaged art. And that is kind of opposed to making work to show in gallery exhibitions. For example, last year I mounted a major public art project for the city of Boston called Future Monuments to the Trees of the Public Garden through the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and supported by a grant from the Mellon Foundation. I've worked with art collectives. That's another aspect of my work. And I've been doing that for over 10 years.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the form of contemporary art practice? And, did you say it was called Place at Medium?
Place as Medium.
As Medium. Place as Medium.
Place as Medium. So Place as Medium is a form of contemporary art practice that I have formulated over the course of 14 plus years through my doctoral research and writing, my teaching practice as a college professor of art theory, philosophy, and a number of humanities, broad humanities classes, and my artistic practice as a public artist. The philosophy behind my work is presented in a book I just finished, really, so like just weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, called Place as Medium and New Grounds for Thinking in Contemporary Art, that will be coming out this year or early next year with Routledge.
You describe yourself as a socially engaged artist who works in art collectives. Can you explain what socially engaged art is and how you talk a little bit about your work in art collectives?
Yes. Well, first, socially engaged art is a type of contemporary art practice that has developed over the last 50 years or so, if you date back to the early work of German artist Joseph Beuys. Beuys basically said that every aspect of life can be approached as a form of creativity, and that everyone is an artist. Beuys called his work social sculpture. After Beuys, there is a whole history of the development of that genre of art practice. Today, there are many, many books on the subject and countless exhibitions and public art projects in that mode, although it goes by many, many names. There are even graduate programs in socially engaged art. In a basic sense, the work is less about object making for exhibitions and more about creating events. An important factor to consider is participation of the artists and the public, and what's going on kind of in the situatedness of these projects. When I was teaching at Montserrat, I developed many special classes as introductions to socially engaged art, usually in conjunction with special things that were happening around the school at that time. For example, I ran a course in conjunction with a week-long festival called Crossing Water at the Beverly Salem Bridge. The students would learn about the history of how that practice evolved, the principles behind it. I'd throw in readings for them to read and ask them to write, papers or mini papers or responses. And then they would eventually come up with a proposal for their own projects out of a class like that. And it would, yes.
So GAR Residency is an open art school presented by the art collective Ocean School Collective. Can you explain how the Ocean School is a socially engaged art project?
Yes. So Ocean School is a socially engaged art project as an open art school. And that can be considered an open art school. Again, it could be considered a subgenre of socially engaged art. As I mentioned before, I taught many classes at Montserrat as an introduction to socially engaged art. One of them was called Open Art Schools. I coined the term. That course looks specifically at art projects out in the world designed as temporary schools. Each use a distinctive, creative, pedagogical model. Education was always a core focus. The projects, therefore, always involve many people acting as both teachers and students. I use Pablo Alguero's book, Introduction to Socially Engaged Art, or Education for Socially Engaged Art. It's a little teeny textbook as the primary textbook for those types of classes, which is this fabulous little, I don't know, it's got maybe 12 different topics that you think through, and it's very helpful. He used to be the director of education at MoMA, and he's done amazing projects, including in the Boston area. He's an inspiration for me. So, that's kind of it's amazing how many people like art. It's usually not a single artist. It's usually like an endeavor, and that you have to bring a lot of people together to mount a temporary school. Some of them have been total dismal failures, but that's their beauty. Like never even opened. And then some of them have been fabulous. And I write about one of these schools called the Swamp School in my book. It's the final chapter. And this is a project out of MIT by a husband and wife team, Gediminas and Nomita Urbonas. And they are, it's like thinking like the swamp. It's a major project. And anyway, so I've been thinking about this for a long time and trying to develop classes for students to think about it too. And so to be able to put it together in the real world in something like this fun is just a blast.
That's amazing. Now, if, for the people watching, if they're trying to wrap their head around it, or if they're interested in what this is, what does it mean to you to be a part of an art collective? What does that look like? Yeah, well, being part of an art collective is wonderful because everybody brings their own special selves to the project. So it becomes very rich. And you can do a lot in art collectives that you just can't do on your own. And what I love about art collectives, the first art collective I was part of is called The Three Graces, with two friends from my PhD program. And we just went, one of the members she's a porcelain maker. She has very fine art, porcelain studio, and she's an artist, and all of us struggling through writing these PhDs. And then my other friend, Patricia Tinajero, who's part of the Ocean School Collective, has researched soil, and she had a philosophy of becoming soil. So the three of us got together, and we ended for 7 years. We decided that our art collective was about our friendship, and we ended up doing these fabulous projects. One of them was 3 years long in a nature preserve where we made pots in our studio, and then we buried the pots. We collected plant material. We buried it for a whole year. We brought it up. We made paper. We cutted the paper. We brought it to people like, here in Beverly at the farmer's market and asked everybody to write little letters to the earth. Oh, cool. And then we put them on little strings and then they decomposed for the next year. So it was like this whole long project, but it was kind of like that. We just did projects for fun. Yeah. But we learned a lot, and working in an art collective, you have to manage, differences and come up with consensus. And so that's why working with the Three Graces and really valuing our friendship above all was so amazing background. And I am also part of another art collective called the Plant Contingent. And again, it's out of my PhD program, and then Ocean School Collective. So yes, I love working in art collectives. That does sound like a lot of fun and a worthwhile, pursuit. Why compete with each other when you can build something beautiful together? Yeah. And, it's a win-win, really. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of work balancing all the personalities and opinions. Yes. But that's really cool. What does artistic research look for you?
Artistic research for me is like, it's just the good stuff. This is the working, the lab, doing experiments, not really expecting, not having anything in mind, but just going and doing it. And, well, I told you I'm an academic. I'm just like perpetual student. I just went all the way. I just love learning all the time. And a lot of people who ended up going to PhDs just love research. So I just love to dive into it. But the idea that, when you make art, you can really go deep into the ideas, like science does that. The whale scientists, when you think about whale scientists around the world, Ocean Alliance was founded by Roger Payne, and they ended up discovering that the humpback whales were singing songs, and a lot of them in that group of scientists were also musicians, and they had these little, it was just this crazy story with somebody delivering, secret Navy recordings that they thought were submarines, but they were the songs of the humpback whales, and they had, developed this sonogram that you print out and all the coding, and they kind of somehow delivered it to this group studying the whales of scientists because they were trying to understand other, like crickets and other things in nature. Put them out on the living room floor, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a real song.
Yeah.
So that was like foundation of Ocean Alliance. And so that's a kind of a research, and then that just spurned more interest, like, wow, this is a song, and then that's kind of an idea of artistic research. And in fact,
cool.
This archive at the Ocean Alliance the whole archive is so artistic. I mean, they collected all of the receipts from the early years. They had all of they're at the Tar and Watson paint factory in Gloucester. They have all of those kind of documentation of what that factory was, which was making the toxic paints for the boats. So it's like a toxic waste site. And then Roger Payne, and as they developed these, with Ian Kerr, who's now been around, they had this thing, world tour on this sailing boat called the Odyssey. They went everywhere. But then the turn was, and they were credited with the founding of the Save the Whales movement.
Oh, okay.
And it was the golden record because of the songs of the humpback whales became, the record that got in. It's the largest LP ever done. It's on the golden record. I mean, it's like Save the Whales. It came through there, but what they realized was that it was the ocean toxicity. It was the pollution that was, they'd stopped the whaling, but we have to save the ocean, and we have to save the humans.
Yeah.
So that is all
Always comes
mixed
back
up.
to us.
It
We like to
always
think that we can escape. Like, oh, the animals and the planet can fall apart, but we'll be fine. But no, it's always going to come back around to humans.
Yeah, and it's all interrelated, and so artistic research is just that. It's being open to learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I'm just really interested in animals and song. I think it's really cool. I have zebra finches, and the father zebra finch teaches their young, or their male young, how to sing their specific song, and they all have their own song. And usually it's like the game of telephone where it's just slightly different. So, and they all have unique songs.
Well, this is what they learned about the humpback whales. They're like, they're pop stars, and the songs change over time, but they remember the good old tunes, and and of course the noise in the ocean is becoming an issue. So I remember seeing recordings of even Roger Payne, who passed away at the end of his life, saying that their songs had changed since the 70s. So people who follow the songs and try to understand them, they're becoming less complex, maybe because they can't hear the subtleties. And
interesting.
Oh my gosh, there was something in the news that the blue whales have gone silent. This came in the last couple of days.
Like totally silent? They're not singing, or they're?
I don't know. Somebody's noticing that they're not picking up the songs of the blue whales right now.
That is weird.
It's really weird.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of mysteries in that ocean. You wanted to circle back to speculative fabulation and expand upon that definition a little bit.
Well, I think maybe going to, the incredible experience of those expeditions out of Ocean Alliance that continue. They're so active going out on an active expedition. They just had the 10-year anniversary of the Snotbot that I went to a few weeks ago at a Culture Splash from this summer. And with the Snotbot as a collector, it's a drone that goes out to the blow of the whales, and with like a little petri dish will collect the blow, and then they come back and they measure the toxicity of the whole ocean. They have this huge data set. Yeah. going, it's very rich, and they coordinate with other whale scientists doing things. They know the whales. We were learning so much about whales, and kind of whales are the chiefs of the ocean, right?
Oh.
They're so magnificent. Why not go follow the chiefs, right?
Yeah.
And but what speculative fabulation allows us to do is, we're not constrained by actually having to go on the boat for, and then learn how to be submarine technology to go into the deep, or that we, one of the great initiatives right now is called SETI, Cetacean Translation Initiative. It's run by a group, I think they were out of Harvard, to translate use AI to help decode the clickings of the sperm whales.
Another good use of AI.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there, it's like like AI, SETI is like alien conversation. But, so there are those constraints because we haven't done it. But our group, we can speculatively fabulate that the connection has already been made, that we are in open communication, because in fact, through our collective, we are in communication. So that just, it allows us to rethink things like, okay, what are those, again, I teach environmental ethics. And that was so fun at Emerson to teach that class in environmental ethics. But basically you ask, what is our mutual obligation to each other beyond the human? And that it's always about framing the way that we think about things. Ethics. What is ethics? It's where our kind of, judgment comes in and connects with how it is. What's out there? What are the worlds that we create? Who's in and who's out in terms of creating questions of ethics? So, we could go on for a long, long time, but speculative fabulation is just a tool to be able to imagine things that really maybe are hard to pull off in the real world.
Okay, that is really cool. I think we were talking about this idea of creating new myths. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yes, so our collective, Ocean School Collective, has been working together for many years. And in the early on, we would first we were just walking the land. And one of the early myths that we came up with was that the whales walk the land. The whales came onto the land to say, hey, pay attention, you've got to do something. It's like they're connecting to us, and speculative fabulation allows you to play with time and space and distance and, any constraint that we have. You don't have to be under those constraints. So are they from the future? Are they from the past? Are they from a different dimension? We don't know. But is it possible that whales can walk the land? And we've believed that they have showed up on the land. They've come to us to say, come out to us, So anyway, that's kind of a new myth. Another example of a new myth is, as a philosopher, I can go around and I can put in an abstract to a conference, and if I get accepted, I can deliver a paper. And one of the papers that I delivered at a philosophy conference in Seattle a few years ago spoke about creating new myths. And I drew on the myths from Plato's Phaedrus about the cicada, who in Greek mythology, the cicadas were formerly humans who had touched through the muses music, and they were so enthralled with music that they forgot to eat and sleep, so that they kind of died.
Wow.
But then the muses allowed them to come back every 7 years. And anyway, it figures into this Plato's one of his dialogues, and so I played with that and talked about a myth from the Maori myth, and the whales were the chiefs of the water. I mentioned that, and the trees were the chiefs of the land. And in Aotearoa, which is New Zealand Maori, they have the whales play on on the shore, and the trees are huge. They're like our sequoias. They're giant, and they have, their grandfathers, the genealogy and everything. So that the myth that, was talked about was that in real life, in fact, those trees are dying because people are bringing in something on the soles of their shoes that's killing the trees. They don't have a disease. And then the whales at that time, there was a huge whale beaching, and nobody knew why they were coming to the whales. They were coming together, and in the Maori myth, the whales learned the song from the trees because of the way the wind went into the leaves. And they were friends. They learned from each other. And anyway, so we kind of came up with this myth that they're asking for our help because the humans have technology that they don't have. But they need to communicate. We need to all communicate. So that's like an idea of a myth. So if we play with, in the collective, we can try to tell stories. So we don't know what's going to come out of our September residency. It's a mystery.
That is cool.
Because,
that sounds like a lot of fun, honestly, creating
so we're
new
just
myths.
We're going to create it. We don't even know what it is, but that's our thing.
So it's rather than being constrained by like, this is the exact science of, this is, here's the horrible things that are happening. It's this myth that's going to evoke emotion and draw people in just because it's so creative and just maybe create change in that way.
And it still allows us to face reality.
Exactly. It's just a different way of doing it.
Imagine these trees that are the oldest trees on the planet, that are 1,200 years old, that are dying, that we don't have a cure for that tree. What are we going to do? The time is now. The ocean toxicity, the noise, like there is an urgency, and it can be overwhelming when we start measuring things like through science. And so what art can do is bring in our emotion, take us close to it in a way that we can face these things, face them together, in ways that maybe can be overwhelming if you only start thinking about the catastrophic changes that are like being measured.
It's very overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Do you have an example of a specific time where you felt like, somebody, it clicked for someone, they got it, or change was made, like a direct result from one of these projects? Well,
one of the beautiful experiences out of where the land meets the sea and the culture splash, because Reese Siswick does these transmissions for the whale, and I'm furiously writing them down, and then in the performance, Haley Reardon, who's a singer-songwriter, was accompanying us, but I was reading the English translation and Ree was reading the transmission, the pure transmission, which is like, it's almost like the language of the muses, or the light language, she calls it. But so I was reading the English translation, which is, we got to rewrite the record. We've got to come together, we have to meet together in the safety of the song. We meet inside the sound, together. It's our chorus, but people were crying. I mean, people in the audience were so moved because in a way, we did bring the whales to us. That was the most incredible experience. It's about that connection. I think art can do that. That is the beauty of art.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We say, wonder is our weapon.
I like that. Wonder is our weapon. Better than an actual weapon. What about the archive of Ocean Alliance? How are you engaging with that?
Well, one thing that we hope, is like we have a methodology that we've used, that it's a beautiful library that they've actually just renovated at the Ocean Alliance on Rocky Neck. And sometimes we ask everybody to go out and just like go look in the files, look in the books, like what do you pick out? And everybody does their own little research, and then we share the research. And then from there, that's where we've been able to build our myths. So it's not like I do it. It's like we all are kind of finding what's interesting to us
Yeah.
and then doing something with it. It's very like, that's how art gets made, I think.
That's cool.
Yep.
Pulling things and stringing them together, and yeah, awesome. Can you say more about the ways in which two people that you name, Roger Payne, the founder of OA, and then oceanographer Sylvia Earle, how are they your inspirations for bringing art and creativity and the imagination as weapons of wonder to confront the challenges facing our planet alongside science? So the long question. Yeah. And how is OSC inspired by the world of the whales?
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, well, we had an early research session, and Sylvia Earle, who is an oceanographer, and Roger Payne both kind of appeared as kind of pillars of the expedition. Obviously, Roger Payne, that's an easy one because he just passed away, and he was one of the founders of Ocean Alliance over 50 years ago. And he advocated that, yes, science is important, but we really have to turn to the arts. We really have to turn to the arts. That's what we have. That's, let's grab on there. So that, that's an inspiration for us. And Ree is a friend, knows him personally. And so that's a very strong connection to us. But the other person, Sylvia Earle, is an oceanographer who did a lot of early dives. And she's a world spokesperson for the health of the ocean. And we all met her at MIT. Haley Reardon and Ivana Usteraz, who are two of our members, performed with the humpback whale songs at one of the TEDx talks that happened to be at MIT, and she was there. And, we all met her. It was like amazing. She's so positive about the possibilities of discovering so much now about that we are learning about the ocean, but we can learn about it and use that wonder and just excitement and new knowledge to put our energies towards making sure that we keep it healthy. Yes. Because we keep the whole planet healthy with the ocean and ourselves and everything else.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have the positivity along with the concern. If you just have the concern and you see everything that's happening, it's very defeatist, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do balancing the two. That's interesting. Can you say more about how specifically the songs of the humpback whale inspire the project?
Yes, well, the songs are really important. I've mentioned them before with all of the archive and, reading all of the coding, and the humpback whales are just incredible. If we went to the floor to the ceiling with all of the range of the range of sound, humans use like this much of it, whales use the whole thing. It's incredible, wow. the variety of their sounds. You can see it visually in these sonograms. But we went early on, it was just, we did it, but one of our members, Haley Reardon, is a singer-songwriter, and she's kind of the voice of the next generation. She's the youngest member of the collective, by far, almost the next generation. And, but she, with her knowledge as a songwriter, really connected to the song as songs. And in this TEDx talk that she performed, she said that she's not going to be singing about the whales, she's almost collaborating with them. And then we said that we'll meet there. We came up, because I'm a professor, and I was like, let's do a seminar on the Greek chorus, because the way that the whales move from north to south is very much about the Dionysian festival of the harvest.
Okay, so that's how
it was about
came
like
up
the spring and the fall, and they would come, and the males sing, like you said about the birds. The males teach the males, and the females are silent, and then and it's all in the archive of the Ocean Alliance. There's a singer, like the pop star, and there's a joiner. A male whale comes up and doesn't sing, but they swim around for a while, and then they separate. But then the joiner can then become a singer.
Right. Was it like he's being an audience, like he's being respectful,
learning.
or
listening, and then repeating, and then the women, and then the mother and the baby can join the joiner, and they swim for a while, and kind of that's how they go from the Stellwagen Bank back down to the breeding, the birthing grounds down in the Caribbean. And then when they come back up and they feed in the summer, and that's the only time the humpback whales sing the songs.
I see.
So we thought it was like the festival, the Dionysian festival, and then we had to do it. It was about the Greek chorus, and everything is ethical questions, that have to be set out straight in the ancient Greek chorus. We have to think about the ethics of this, underlying everything, and the connection between art and ethics and, I don't know, our emotions.
That's, It feels like it's a sense of community that, the whales are singing, teaching each other songs, like how we pass songs down over generations. And it's not just to their family members, it's to the community, which I think is kind of cool that they, have that relationship. I think you answered some of my questions, but how are you inspired by the work of OA, specifically their use of technology, like the SnotBot, if we want to get more into that interesting name, to measure the toxicity of the ocean through whales?
Yes, well, what we, I think it goes back again to the chiefs, and that the whale scientists, as almost like those kind of cool scientists going out in the ocean, studying the whales, using the highest technology, like the SnotBot, the drone, and whale scientists around the world, like I said, the SETI program using AI, for example. It's like, and these commercial space flights are in that realm. It's like all of the highest realm of technology and human understanding and resources that it takes to do those kinds of expeditions, and what it takes to continue to do that work. That is like, we want to be there in the arts. We want to position ourselves there. And so because we do speculative fabulation, we're really open to these imaginative new technologies. Maybe they're ancient future technologies. What is the technology of navigation or going across time and space? What is the technology to decode languages that we don't understand? How can we use those kind of technologies? How can we bring people on to come on a whale expedition with us? That's kind of a technology, because it's hard to get on a whale expedition for real, but maybe it's more open than we think, and how can we, so these technologies are really interesting. And as an artist, as a philosopher, understanding new media technologies. One of our members, Ivana Usteraz, has been an early pioneer. Honestly, it's right when it came out. Back, the ChatGPT came out in November, I think, of 2022, and then, in January they launched the artist creative side of that, and she was an early adopter, and her work is really using a partnership with AI to create these technologies, whether they're kind of spaceships that allow us to go underwater and breathe, or to move across the ocean fast, and bubble technology. Cool. We've got like bubble technology as nets that can replace the nets, because we have, entanglement's a big issue. And Gloucester Harbor is, of course, one of the oldest fishing places. So how do you navigate those industries of conservation and the fishing industry? And then, we've got other technologies up our sleeves, like how to remediate toxicity. Another member, Patricia, she's an ecologist. She knows about soil, and she's been studying toxicity of soil. Well, how does that translate into the ocean toxicity? What ancient technologies, like the blood of the horseshoe crab, that can remediate the copper, the toxicity in the copper, that's 200 million years old, or other technologies. So we are able to play with artistic laboratory thinking in ways that,
the scientists don't maybe have time to.
Maybe they need, billions of dollars to do it. We can just do it out of our imagination.
I mean, that could be a whole separate conversation on how artists use AI and your thoughts on it, because I am very interested. But I've used prompting to let me come up with like the perfect nursery, and I will describe like, this is what I want, and it needs to be this and that, and then they'll, generate a photo. And then of course I'm like, oh, but how do I, where do I find this stuff? But I'm very interested in that, especially that someone who was kind of there early on.
Let's bring her on.
Because I don't have a negative feeling towards ChatGPT that I feel like a lot of people have. So I'm always interested to hear everyone's opinions.
It is already integrated so much in our life that we don't even understand. And being from education, of course, is a big shift. What do you do with AI, with the traditional college paper, when you hit a button and the paper pops out in 15 seconds.
It's wild.
So it's as a co-pilot, as a collaborator. I think Ivana, we should invite her in, because I think she's learned a lot about the creativity, partnerships, where the limits are, and where her work is the core.
For sure.
Yep.
That could be a whole episode, I'm sure. Let's see. Did we talk about the expedition format of OA?
Well, just if anybody shows up, the opening is September 4th, and we're running it like a press conference. Mm-hmm. So imagine these space expeditions. About a month ahead of time, you might get to meet the people going on the expedition. So that's going to be an opportunity to be a little bit introduced to the project, to see everyone, but also to be introduced to our expedition, which already is in formulation, and you can pick up the press release that is, talks about the colony of the Golden Lotus, formerly known as Rocky Neck Arts. So Rocky Neck, I don't know, I don't want to, preview too much, but so the press conference on September 4th just introduces us. Then we work for 1 month as a collective. We have no idea what's going to come out, but we're going to have open studios once a week. And we may be able to do the podcast format once a week during the course of the school, the Open Art School, Ocean School. And then on September 28th, which is a Sunday from 2 to 4, is our closing. It's not the closing performance, it's the expedition.
That's the expedition.
That's the expedition. So if you want to come on in the expedition, you show up at Ocean Alliance at the Tar and Watson factory from 2 to 4 on Sunday, September 28th, and you will go on an expedition.
Okay, that's really cool. And you answered most of the following questions, but is there anything else that you want to say about the challenges of blending art and science, or how your background comes in, any of that?
Well, just as maybe a kind of a wrap up, is that there are a lot of challenges with art and science collaborations.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it is that artists really don't have that equal place at the table, with the funding and the school opportunities, and kind of the way that we train people going into science versus people going into art. Is somehow, there's a discrepancy. And what we hope to do in this is really encourage, a kind of a way to bring the artist to the table in a very serious way. Because this new kind of planetary thinking will require a different kind of diplomacy with the other than human world. And, maybe the best people for that are the artists.
Do you want to talk a little bit about ethics in this project and what role that takes?
Well, again, I'm a philosopher, and as a professor of environmental ethics, it is a very important question for me. So, we talk about Ocean School as a school for ocean thinking. To me, that is the question. What is ocean thinking? Mm-hmm. Who is it open to ocean thinking? Is it a place where we can come together, be outside of the human realm? I think that is the next move to make including the ocean itself as a body, so to speak, on the planet that has, has consideration for the health, because it is a mutually interactive. We are all so interconnected that we can't only think about the human interest when we talk about ethics. We really have to expand. And that takes a massive shift in thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about core values of place as medium, such as thinking through place, boundaries of place, creativity of time and space configuration, role of hospitality, shared authorship, ecological thinking beyond the human alone, if you can remember all of that.
Oh my gosh, Amanda, that's for the next podcast. That's
a
way
lot.
too big.
We'll
That's
say
my
that.
book.
We did get a lot of questions in here that we probably don't need to cover all of them, but we did cover most.
We
so
did, and we'll
to
do
be
it next time.
continued.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come back.
All right, awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or anything you'd like to plug before we close out?
Well, I want to plug BevCam.
Oh, thank you.
Man, when you opened this storefront on Cabot Street in Beverly, I was so intrigued, and to be in here, doing my first podcast is just so exciting.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to return. So congratulations to all of you for what you are making available to the community. It's so easy and so fun.
Yes, come start a podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and congrats on your first episode.
Thank you.
And there will be more, so we're looking forward to seeing them.
Awesome.
Do you have any teasers that you want to put out there before we go for your upcoming episode, or do you want to keep it a secret?
Well, I'd love to introduce all the members of the collective.
Okay.
And that's probably the next step. And then it would be so fabulous to have very special guests come on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some people in mind.
Okay. All right. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Well, thank you for being with us, and thank you everyone for watching. Take care.
All right.